All right, good morning. Welcome back to pre-calculus. So we are looking at our final exam prep. This is the first problem. There's parts A, B, C, D of this thing. Um, the way that the final exam is going to work is I'm picking one of these problems for you to figure out the difference quotient for. And as usual, the problem is written, find the difference quotient f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. This formula is given. Don't memorize it. You'll have to next year, but or next semester, but you don't have to memorize this. But I'm going to give you one of these problems. Pick one. I'm not going to pick all of them. It's too much work, and I will go through and do this. So the idea here is that everywhere you see an X, you're going to replace an H. Let's go ahead and we'll start in on problem number A, and we'll just kind of work through all of these as we can go, okay? So we have 3x squared minus 10x plus 4. So 3x squared, so plus or minus 10x plus 4. Okay? And we're going to figure out the difference quotient here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say 3x plus h squared minus 10x plus h plus 4. Right? That's our f of x plus h business. Okay, if I wanted to draw a little thing in here, we could say, this little piece here, this is f of x plus h. Okay, and then we're going to have minus, okay, we'll go back to blue, okay, minus, and I'm just going to type in 3x squared minus 10x plus 4, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do this and say, okay, look at this. This was just my f of x. So we're going to take all of this and divide it by h. Okay, I'm not going to write that in for this one. I'm just going to go ahead and repeat or go through the process here. So we've got a squared. Exponents take place before multiplication does. So we have to square this thing out before we can go ahead and multiply out by the 3. So we're going to say this is 3. And off to the side here, we're going to do an x plus h times x plus h and go ahead and figure out what that equals. I'm going to move this 3 down a little bit because we're not going to use it just here. And we can just go out and FOIL this thing out. So we have an x squared. We have a 2x. We have an xh rather plus an hx, right? We have an hx, we have an xh plus an h squared. Hey, xh and hx are the same thing. They're just in swapped order. We can add them together. 3 times 5 is the same as 5 times 3. That's not true for everything in math, but it is for this stuff. So what we're going to have here is we have a 3, and I'm going to go ahead and combine this. We have an x squared, xh and hx. They make 2xh's. You could write that any way you please, plus h squared. Like the order that you put the x or the h in doesn't matter. Okay, so we have this. Since I didn't distribute the coefficient yet, I'm going to go ahead and wait on that. So we have minus 10 x plus h plus 4. And I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to say minus, and we have parentheses, 3x squared minus 10x plus 4. Okay, now, because I don't have to worry about how much paper I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and type in divided by h. So this goes through the whole f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. We're just going to work this thing out. So next step is I'm going to go ahead and expand these coefficients to everything I possibly can. So all of this stuff is going to get multiplied out. This stuff is going to get multiplied out. This negative sign is going to get multiplied out. Everything is going to happen here. So we're going to say this is going to be 3x squared plus 6xh plus 3h squared minus 10x minus 10h. Be careful that you get the negative on both of these. I see the mistake that people make is usually right here with the second one. Okay, plus 4. The other mistake people make is that they forget about this negative. Minus 3x squared minus minus is a positive 10x. And we have a minus 4. And all of this stuff is over h. Now we can look at this and start thinking about what are our like terms, what's going to cancel. A lot of stuff is going to cancel. That's going to happen to everyone every time you do this problem. So this 3x squared and that negative 3x squared, those are going to cancel. This negative 10x and this positive 10x, those are going to cancel. This positive 4 and that negative 4, those are going to cancel. So let's kind of summarize what we have and think about what the next step is going to be. So here we have a 6xh plus 3h squared minus 10h all over h. All right. Now, what I want you to do next is I want you to factor an h out of everything on the top. So we have an h times 6x plus 3h minus 10 all over h. Now we can cancel the h's, okay? And when you're doing these kinds of problems, you know you're done when you cancel this bottom h, okay? But that's how you're going to tell whether or not you're just about done. So my answer here, which does not look like an answer, I'm sorry for that, 6x plus 3h minus 10 is my answer, and that's what I would report for my answer, okay? And that's how you do a problem like this. Um, Depending on what mood I'm in when I actually go to write your final, this is probably the easiest one of these things. I have given this problem in the past, but not frequently. So if you were going to bet, I would not bet on this one, but you never know, right? What kind of a mood I'm going to be in when I go to write this thing. All right, so let's see. Part B, we have the square root of 5x minus 3. Okay, so we're going to say we have the square root 5x minus 3. So again, we want to calculate f of x plus h minus f of x all over h for this function right here. Okay, find the difference quotient for this function. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we have the square root of 5. Everywhere we see an x, we're going to replace it with an x plus h minus 3. This is all under a square root minus the square root of 5x minus 3 all over h. Now, we have to figure out how to get rid of this h and how to figure out what's going to happen here on the top. A lot of students are like, I'm going to square both sides. There's no equal sign. There is no both sides. You get one side. So you can't square both sides. There's only two tricks in mathematics. You can either add 0 or multiply by 1. We're going to multiply by 1. Well, that sounds kind of silly. Like it depends on what 1 looks like. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this by 5x plus h minus 3 plus the square root of 5x minus 3 divided by the same thing. So we have square root of 5x plus h, but don't forget your parentheses, minus 3 plus the square root of 5x minus 3. Be very careful. I check these signs to make sure you've done it correctly. Okay, that's what I'm looking for to make sure this happens. So be careful when you're multiplying by what they call conjugate in order to figure out what's going to happen here. What we have to do next is we're going to multiply these two terms together. I've got a square root of 5x plus h minus 3 times a square root of 5x minus 3 minus 5x plus h minus 3. These are both the same things. The square roots are going to disappear. So we have a 5x plus h minus 3 minus. Now we have a square root of 5x minus 3 times a square root of 5x plus h um, minus 3, okay, plus a square root of 5x plus h minus 3 times the square root of 5x minus 3. And then we have a negative times a positive, so minus square root of 5x minus 3, square root of 5x minus 3, parentheses 5x minus 3. We're multiplying the same thing under the square root. That makes the square root goes away. Here, they were not the same things. The square roots could not go away from this. Like you're stuck with these pieces. Okay? Again, this is all going to be under. Okay, and this is along for the ride. Okay, every time you got one of these problems to do, you're going to have a mess somewhere. It's kind of like when you're sweeping up and you're not a good sweeper. I'm not a good sweeper. You sweep up your bedroom and you're like, you got this tiny little clump of dirt. You get the dustpan, you sweep that up. But for me, no matter how many times I do the dustpan, I've always got this tiny little fine grain of dust sitting there. And at some point, it depends on whether or not, if your mom was like, when I was a teenager, like was your mom was like going to be that upset about that dust or she's going to be okay. But what I would do is I would get that tiny, tiny little strip of dust and I just sweep that under the carpet. Like, that's somebody else's problem now. But that's what I would do. But no matter what, and people who sweep up your kitchen, like no matter what you do, there's that tiny little bit left that you could get the dustpan And after 5 times with the dustpan, you're like, but there's still a tiny little line of dust. I'm like, yeah, you have to throw that out. No matter what you do, you're going to be left with a mess. You're going to be left with this tiny little line of dust somewhere in your problem. You're stuck with it. So here we have an h times, I have a square root of 5x plus h, 5x plus h that way, minus 3, plus a square root of 5x minus 3. Okay, and there's nothing you can do about this. It's going to stick there. Okay, but back to the numerator, because notice we have a minus 5x minus 3 times 5x plus h minus 3 plus 5x plus h minus 3 times 5x. These two are going to cancel out. Okay, that's kind of the whole point of multiplying by the conjugate, is that these terms go away. They disappear. They cancel each other. Okay, that was the whole motivation for us to multiply by a conjugate, is those cross terms go away. So let's go ahead and figure out what we have left here. We have a 5x plus 5h. I just distributed the 5 minus the 3 minus parentheses 5x minus 3 all over, okay, h. Don't multiply out this denominator. Leave it alone. Okay, we have a square root of 5x plus h minus 3 plus square root 5x minus 3. Again, make sure this is a plus. That's actually important, okay? Because it's a numerator. The last thing we want is a numerator to be 0, or even have the chance of being 0. If we're adding, take a square root, you have a positive number. Yeah, take another square root, you got a positive number. We add two positive numbers together. There's no way that can be 0. So that's never going to be 0. What about the h? We'll get to the h. All right, let's go ahead and distribute this negative sign into everything I have to deal with here. So we have 5x plus 5h minus 3 minus 5x. Negative times negative is a plus 3. And we have to divide by h times the square root 5x plus h minus 3 plus square root 5x minus 3. Okay? Hey, there's some stuff that's going to cancel up here too. Again, that's the point. So we have a 5x, we have a negative 5x. We have a negative 3, we have a positive 3. And we are left with a 5h on the top and some stuff on the bottom. So we have a 5h on the top. Let's put it on the next page. So we have a 5h up here divided by h times square root of 5 parentheses x plus h minus 3. If you distribute this, that's fine. That's not going to hurt nothing. 5x minus 3. Again, make sure this is a plus. And hey, notice that there's an h on the top and there's an h on the bottom. Now it is time to cancel my h. Now, how do you know you're done the problem? You've canceled that bottom h. So we're going to simplify this and write it nicely. But we know we're done with the problem because we canceled that h, and that's all we have left to deal with. So we have square root 5x plus 5h minus 3. I distributed it, plus square root 5x minus 3, and you're done. As ugly as that looks, that actually is my answer, and that's what it's supposed to look like. All right, so that's how you do part B here. All right, how about part C? All right, let me go back up and look at what part C is. Part C is going to be, looks like ABC is going to be x over 3x plus 1. So we have x over 3x plus 1. All right. So we have x over 3x plus 1, and we're going to apply the difference quotient to this function. F of x plus h minus f of x all over h. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and unravel this. So first step is we have to replace x with an x plus h. Everywhere you see an x here, we're going to go ahead and replace the x with an x plus h. What was this? This was x. I missed my first one here. I said h and then plus 1. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go back all the way out here. Okay, this was a plus 1. Let me change that to a 1. Okay. So the goal is everywhere we see an x, we're going to replace it with an x plus h. So we have x plus h on the top divided by 3 parentheses x plus h plus 1 minus x over 3x plus 1 all divided by h. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this h off to the side. Okay, because like when I did these problems, I didn't like the fact that I had to spend one, two, three lines per problem doing this. It used up all my paper really quickly. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There is. So we're going to say this is 1 over h times x plus h over 3x plus 3h plus 1 minus x over 3x plus 1. Okay, now we're getting ready to start this thing. All right, we've got two fractions with different denominators. How would you like to add them together? Well, it seems like we have to get common denominators. And right you are, we have to get common denominators. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by 1 twice. So we have 1 over h times. Here's my x plus h over 3x plus 3h plus 1 times 3x plus 1 over 3x plus 1. I just multiply by 1 minus x over 3x plus 1 times 3x plus 3h plus 1 over 3x plus 3h plus 1. Okay, we have to go ahead and sort this out. Do not multiply out the denominators. You can. It's not wrong. It is just that if I decided to go to Albuquerque from Belen and decided that, hey, I'm going to go to Las Cruces first, which is really far south in the opposite direction, will I still get to Albuquerque? Sure. Will it take a lot longer? Yeah. It's not a wrong way to go. It's just not going to get you to where you need to go faster. Okay. So you can do it. It's just not helpful in getting to your location, getting to your destination in a quick manner. Leave the denominators alone. Don't multiply them out. I don't care if you multiply these out. Nobody will ever care if you multiply these. Well, some people will, but if they really want this multiplied out, they'll leave an instruction, fully multiply out the denominators. I will not be giving you that instruction. Leave them alone. So the numerators, we do have to multiply out. So if you want to multiply out the numerators, here's your chance to show me how good you are at multiplying. So 1 over h times, okay, we have to FOIL out this top here, right? One of the things you learn in intermediate algebra is when in doubt, FOIL. So I've got x plus h times 3x plus 1. So we're going to say this is going to be 3x squared, right? That's x times this. We have a 3xh. Okay. Okay. We're going to say we have a, so we did the firsts. Okay. Now we're going to have our, I guess we're going to have our middles here. So we have our first, we have our plus 3xh here for this piece. We have a plus x plus hx, or plus h rather, not hx, plus h at the end. Okay. Minus, and I'm just going to leave the minus sign sitting outside. I'm going to multiply it in just a moment. We're going to deal with this one. So we have a 3x squared plus 3xh plus x, right? I just multiplied this piece times everybody, okay? Hang out with that. These are all now under the same denominator. Again, don't multiply this out. There's places where you can make a mistake. This is a place where people make mistakes. We have a 3x plus 1 times 3x plus 3h plus 1. Leave it alone. Now we're going to deal with the top. Okay, so we have 1 over h sitting here, parentheses. We have a 3x squared plus 3xh plus h plus x rather plus h minus, and we're going to distribute this negative sign to everybody. 3x squared minus 3xh minus x, all right, divided by that same denominator. We're going to say 3x plus 1, parentheses, 3x plus 3h, h plus 1, make that an h. Okay, we've got to figure out what we're going to do next. You're looking at the top and noticing like, there's some stuff that's going to cancel. There's a 3x squared and a negative 3x squared. There's a 3xh and a negative 3xh. There's a positive x and a negative x. Oh, would you look at that? So we ended up with, this doesn't feel right, but we ended up with, here we go. Okay, we have an h on the top here. We have 1 over h times h over, and we have a 3x plus 1 times a 3x plus 3h plus 1. The h's cancel. That's how you know you're done. We have a 1 over, and we have a 3x plus 1 times a 3x plus 3h plus 1. All right? And that's what we have sitting here. Okay. I feel like I'm going to double check my top here just a moment here. So we have a 3x squared. We have a 3xh. We have a plus h. We have a plus x. Okay, yeah, we're okay. Okay, it just felt like a little bit light when I got done. I was like, I thought there was more to it. No, there isn't. That's it. We're done with that. So that is how you go through and work through that problem. And then we're ready to work on the next one. That was part C, I believe. Part D. Okay, let's go ahead and double check what the problem is. Let me go ahead and do it this way. All right, problem D. This was 4x cubed. Okay, so we're going to figure out the difference quotient for 4x cubed. All right, now I'm unlikely to give you this problem, and as we're doing it, you're going to see why. So we have to figure out f of x plus h minus f of x all over h, and we're going to sort this thing out. So we've got 4x plus h raised to the third power minus 4x cubed all over h. Okay, you should see a problem like this. I just don't necessarily agree we should do a problem like this, but we can have to figure out what's going to happen here. So we have an x plus h times x plus h times x plus h. We're going to take them two at a time. So the first pair, we have this is x squared plus 2xh, kind of like problem number one, plus h squared. We're not done yet. We still have an x plus h here. Okay, so we have to multiply this out. So we're going to say this is going to be x cubed, right? X times x squared. We have a plus 2. We're going to go ahead and multiply this by this piece. So we have 2x squared h plus h squared x. I just multiplied this x time by everybody. Next thing, now we're going to say x squared h. So we have an x squared h. I'm multiplying this h by this x squared. Plus, we have 2xh squared. And then finally, we have a plus h cubed. And we're going to go ahead and add these pieces together. So we have an x cubed plus 2 plus 1, 3x squared h plus 3, there's two of these and one of those, x h squared plus h cubed. All right, so that's multiplying that x plus h cubed all the way out. So let's go ahead and put it back in our problem. So we have, let's go ahead, there's a positive 4 in here. Yeah, there's a 4 that's way out in the beginning. So let's go ahead and multiply this by 4. So we have 4x cubed plus 4 times 3 is 12. 12x squared h plus 3 times 4, 4xh squared plus 4h cubed minus 4x cubed. This was the original function, all divided by h. Now, some stuff cancels here too, okay? So we're going to be able to say that. So we have 4x cubed minus 4x cubed. Oh, that's it. That's all the canceling we get. Well, it's not all the canceling, but that's all the numerator canceling we're going to get. So we have 12x squared plus 4xh squared plus 4h cubed all over h. There's an h here. Notice that each of these terms has an h in it. We're going to go ahead and factor that out. So we have h, we have a 12x squared plus 4xh plus 4h squared all over h. Last thing we're going to do is last cancellation. How do you know you're done? You've canceled that bottom h. We're canceling that bottom h. So my answer for this problem is going to be 12x squared plus 4xh plus 4h squared. That's going to be my answer. Okay. Remember that these are the slopes of the secant lines between x and h. So if I go back and I remember what the curve of x cubed is, that's kind of what the curve should look like. So if I know what x and I know what h is, so we could pick an x, we could pick an h, knowing what h is, we could figure out the slope of the secant line between these 2 points. Okay, that was the whole point of this whole thing. I know it's like, why did you do all of that? It's a big deal in calculus. That's why we learn about it in pre-calculus, right? I'm going to say thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that was helpful. Um, you're definitely going to see a difference quotient problem on your final exam. You will also see one on your first test for Calculus 1 and probably on your final exam for Calculus 1. So this doesn't go away. If you get good at doing it now, you're going to be all set for the next year, okay? Because you do this quite a few times. Thank you very much for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.